Welcome to I on the Illini. This is Mike Cagley. We've got a pretty interesting show for you today. We have got Bret Bielema, head coach of the Fighting Illini football team, stopped by and visited with me a little bit. And we have Rob Louthain, who heads up the new innovative Illini Learfield merger of sorts. And it will be interesting to talk to him a little bit about what's going on the media and NIL side of the business. So thank you so much for stopping by. Let's get to Bret Bielema. We've got the head coach of Fighting Illini football, Bret Bielema, on here on I on the Illini. Coach, thanks for coming on the show today.
Very excited, Mike. Thanks for having me on. We're getting ready for practice number 5, and our guys have been repping pretty good. So I'm excited. We're on our journey. We're finally started.
Yeah, this brings me back. You're a little younger than I am, but this brings me back to the 80s when Illinois meant big business and big trouble for opponents on either side of the street there with basketball and football. Is that an era that you look back on fondly now that you're at Illinois?
Yeah, I was born in '70, so the '80s were my teen years, and was heavily affected by what went on down here. I was actually really a big time Illinois basketball fan, to be quite honest. Grew up in the Northwest corner, so there's some players from that era. It's funny, as this whole thing's played out, I came here and met a million people, right? But I remember the first basketball game I went to, I met Doug Altenberger, and I was just like, holy cow, like this is Doug.
Same way I feel today, or felt when I interviewed him. You got a chance to meet these guys. Well, I tell you, I had a few questions for you. One thing we've learned about you as a coach, watching you over the last 5 years, is you don't do anything that's random. You seem to be pretty intentional in your actions. And so when I watch this press tour, and most coaches want to see the press about as much as they want to see a positive COVID test, you seem to be having a lot of fun. What was the motivation to go out there and talk to the press?
Well, a couple things, right? Brett Moore, who obviously handles all this stuff for me, he really had an interesting perspective, right? Like we knew in the media, we were going to have the national media days, right, for the Big Ten Conference, but just had so many players that were garnering some national awards and recognition. So, came up with the idea of taking the O linemen up to Chicago, right? We took all of our the guys that couldn't make Chicago down to St. Louis, opened up some windows of opportunity there. For me as a head coach, listen, it's all about being able to expose our program to as many voices and people that normally wouldn't have that moment, right? And, for us, recruiting is a huge side effect of some of this stuff, right? And I would just tell you, like, I went on a couple podcasts, right? And the amount of reaction I got from people that, I have contacts with, whether it be a high school player, high school coach, a former player, really guys from 20, 30 years ago that I coached even before I became a head coach reached out to me. So exposure is a really big deal, right? And social media is a huge aspect of that.
Yeah, and you look, like I said, you're having so much fun doing it, which is, we're just not used to seeing that from coaches. So that was really refreshing. When you're looking at a team like this year with a lot of experience back, high expectations from the fan base, do you go through your goal setting for yourself and your staff and your team? Do you do that any differently? Or is that a process that you use that is just a process that is unaffected by those things?
I get the question, but really I'm pretty, you made reference earlier, right? Like everything I do kind of is planned out or detailed, whatever that word is or phrase. I think if you had my wife on this Zoom, she would probably have another phrase for it, right? Like just kind of like, I kind of get locked into what I do, how I do things, going into year one where we ended up the season being 3-9 versus the next year when we're 8-5 and the next year to be 5-7 and last year to be 10-3. Every year going into it, I like to think I do the same. Now I do the same things, but there are going to be modifications. Like today, case in point, we've gone 4 pretty hard days here in the last 5 that have been good, physical. We've taken steps forward every day. So today I'm kind of lightening the physical load, but heavy on the mental load. We'll work end of half. We'll work some very specific in-game situations today that, even though we don't stress them physically, we're going to really stress them mentally. And there's a process I go through that. I have a working checklist that I go through. But really, goal setting, one of the things I learned, and I actually learned this from Barry Alvarez when I went to Wisconsin. It's something I adopted after I was with him. we let the players make the season goals, right? So I'll
Okay.
sit in front of the room. They'll start rattling them off. We'll probably have 20, 25 goals, and then we'll narrow it down to about, 10 or 12. I'll kind of be a part of that. And then I'll narrow it down to what I propose to them out of their voices into a group of 3, 4, 5, maybe at max. And then I'll let the leadership council kind of tweak it to say it how they want to say it. Sometimes our guys say things in ways that I'm not cued into, right? So little catchphrases and slogans that mean something to them, because I kind of partner that with, I learned that through Barry, but I also learned when I was with Coach Belichick, he had a phrase one time. He was talking to the media and somebody asked him about expectations. And he said, listen, I have high expectations, but I really hope our players are even higher. And that really made a lot of sense to me, right? I can want certain things as a head coach, but really what drives this car in the right direction is our players. And that's something we definitely take advantage of.
Well, now people who are listening are going to think that I cued you in because you've led into my next question. We're all the sum of the experiences that we bring to the table. And I don't know if people realize just how many fantastic coaches that you've worked for as you developed over the years. Hayden Fry, Kirk Ferentz, Bill Snyder, Barry Alvarez, Bill Belichick. I was wondering, was there a piece of like gold from a knowledge standpoint that you got from each coach? And I just wondered like what that might be, just because again, most people haven't had the ability to work for such talented coaches throughout their career.
To be honest, Mike, I realized it kind of really when I got my first head coaching job. When I look back on it, all of those guys you mentioned were a big part of my life, especially when I was going through it. But I remained close to all of those guys. Unfortunately, Hayden's no longer with us, but up until he passed, I remember as it kind of got down to the end, I knew he wasn't going to be with us that much longer. So I was actually out in Vegas and hopped in a car about an hour and a half drive out and went to his little resort where he had kind of retired to, just about an hour and a half outside of Vegas, and spent an afternoon with him and his wife. Just very appreciative that I got that day with him, because I never got a chance to see him again. So that was the one common denominator, So I went from Coach Fry, obviously Kirk came in and had that direct relationship, but then I went to work for Bill Snyder and Barry Alvarez. All of those guys worked for Hayden on the same staff.
Oh,
So
wow.
all of them were a part of that history that I think has a huge factor into all of this, but all of them very uniquely different. Coach Fry was a very genuine players coach. He really didn't talk to us a lot on defense. He may come down and tell us, to strip the ball or make a tackle, but he didn't give many schematic advices. But then I went to work for Kirk, who was an unbelievable head coach who transitioned to legend, right, from Hayden Fry to him.
Yes.
So when I took over for Barry Alvarez, I drew a lot from what Kirk taught me right along the way. And then I went to Bill Snyder, who is completely different than all of them, right? But he was a leave no stone unturned, right? And then if you do, turn it over again, because he's always going to find a way to find something different than the other guy had. And then full circle to Barry Alvarez, who literally when Coach walked in the room, everybody knew who he was. Whether you didn't know who Barry Alvarez, somebody important just walked in the room, and the confidence he carried was pretty awesome. And then all four of those guys, first ballot Hall of Famers in college football Hall of Fame for sure. But to go to work for Coach Belichick, who's absolutely, the 2 years I was with him were worth just an incredible amount of knowledge, perspective, understanding, a simplistic way to look at things by also making it a little complex. So yeah, I've taken a lot from every one of them.
Yeah, I was always curious because anybody gets a chance to work under Belichick, if you're absorbing things, I would look like he would be a guy that would leave you the better for it.
Yeah, he's a pretty special dude. He always, he has a perspective that the outside world sees him through the media, right? But on a personal level, I remember literally the first month we were there, he came up. I like to bet horses. He knows I like horses, so no other betting, just horses, which is totally
Yep.
legal. I love the Derby. I love the Preakness. All of them. So he literally comes up, and my wife, we had had our second child we were expecting, so my wife was not with me in New England when I first got there, and so he's like, "Hey, would you and Jen want to go to the Derby with us this weekend? I'm taking a plane." I'm like, "Absolutely, right?" And Jen couldn't join us just where she was at with the pregnancy and everything, so I hopped on the plane with Coach and really saw a side of him then that I'd never seen before too, right? Just a guy enjoying what he does. And then our horse that we were there to see together, we both commonly knew one of the owners. That thing went on to win the Triple Crown, Justify, and we went to every race that year. So it was really kind of a cool moment to see him on side other than football, but his football knowledge, IQ awareness is as high a level as I've ever seen.
Well, we'll have to get you together with Illini guy Larry Smith. He's the NBC anchor in Lexington, Kentucky, so he has to go cover that every year. We'll have to see if he can get you in for that.
Absolutely.
One of the things reflecting on Luke Altmaier, now people know what his performance is on the field, and obviously he proved an awful lot by coming back this year when we know that he may have had opportunities that were fantastic as well. But how valuable has it been for you that you analyzed what he could do and you were right and he's lived up to it, and he's basically kept that quarterback position stable so that you're not running around every year having to recruit the most important position on the field? Is that something that people talk about? And maybe I'm overvaluing it.
He's what Luke brings to this table every day in this building is absolutely awesome. First, he's, as you made point to, like, a very talented player. He's got all the throws. NFL guys started rolling here now, and I kind of have him. I have a kid that was in my past, Brandon Allen, who's now in his 10th year in the NFL. BA was a really good player for us. Never really, he started probably 20, 30 games, I guess, in the NFL, but he's been in the NFL 10 years now. And the value of that in the NFL is really big. I think Luke has a lot of his same traits and qualities, if not better. And then what he brings in this building as a leader, as a person, he got up and spoke to the team the other day and he literally enlightened me on a few things. He had a quote at the end, just talking about 3 things he goes through every day. But his last point was, the less you talk in this world and the less you put out there, the better your life will be, right? Like, to the humility side of who he is. He's a very humble kid that is very appreciative of what he's been given and the things that he has, but he's also very aware that they didn't happen by chance. He's very intentional in what he does, very intentional in his relationships and his comments and his direction. So really blessed to be around him, and hopefully we've got the best ahead of us.
Yeah, so true. And one of the other things that, as we have watched how you deal with change, because I'm not certain any college coaches have been through more change than what you guys have been through the last couple of years. You were one of the first coaches that really figured out that we need to zero in on bringing back the guys we need to bring back, and maybe not go chase the grass is greener and, try to get in bidding wars with people. How did you come upon that? Because that's something that we're seeing now. It's like an everyday thing, but you were doing that before people really were talking about that.
Yeah, you learn lessons through the trials and tribulations you live through, right? And so before the portal world existed and all this stuff, really your biggest challenge to your best players was that guys declaring for the NFL early, right? And
Yep.
a lot of different reasons went into it, but my last year at Arkansas, I literally lost 3 offensive starters that year to the portal or to the NFL that I wasn't planning on losing. I lost Hunter Henry, who was the first tight end taken in the draft. I lost Alex Collins, who was drafted by the Seahawks, and Denver Kirkland, who played 3 or 4 years in the NFL. All 3 of those guys were like premier SEC, all SEC players, and they all left. And I didn't have a recruiting plan or a backup for that. I had players behind him, but those guys were factoring into being our best players the next year, and they all jumped to the league, right? And when those things happen, like, you got to have an answer. So now the portal allows you to do that, but it also, because what we're able to do financially, you can persuade guys and to show them, hey, this is where you're rated, but I think we can take you from being a 3rd, 4th, 5th rounder to a 1st or 2nd rounder, right? Here's the money you can see now versus what you may see, a year from now. Devin Witherspoon, case in point, right? He was a guy, but he really came back and turned that year into something special. Johnny Newton, another guy, even though he ended up being, I think, the 2nd or 3rd player in the 2nd draft, he took probably a 4th or 5th round grade and turned that into, millions and millions of dollars, right? And that's what we kind of shared with our top guys. We had really 5 or 6 guys we felt we needed to get, but there was about 15 to 20 guys, some starters, some backups, that we were like, hey, you got to retain your best players. They know what you want. They know the expectations. They've been through this drill with you. I was talking actually with Underwood this morning. Ironically, he was coming back from a trip, and he and I were going back and forth, and he just Brad's a huge football fan and asked how practice were. And I said, kind of like I've heard you say, we love older rosters, right? Those older players just know the expectation and the bar that's been set.
Yeah, and that's so true. The other question I had for you is, did you foresee a day that Indiana and Illinois would be one of the most looked at games, but not in college basketball, but in college football. And that is certainly has to be a testament to what you and Josh Whitman have built here. And let's see if Kurt Signetti can keep it up over there. But I didn't have that on my list of things that were going to happen in 2025. That would be one of the games that I'm most excited about.
Mike, great point. And it's, obviously Coach Signetti had a lot of success everywhere he's been. And I thought when that hire came in, like, here's a guy that's been approved. And I think that's where kind of hires are going now. They're, look at Barry Odom at Purdue, right? They obviously went with Ryan, who came from here, who was a younger coach, didn't have the background, but, Barry Odom, who built that roster at UNLV, and now he brought someone with him, and now he's at Purdue. Kurt brought in a lot of his players from JMU, but also brought in a lot of players from the portal. Signetti's an incredibly gifted coach. Just really watching them on film, have huge, mad respect for what they're doing. But I think it's just the world of college football right now, right? You got a chance to change your roster in a short amount of time, get them the way you're doing it. You made that reference earlier about being in the 80s with Illinois football and basketball good. Well, in the 90s, Illinois football and Indiana football were really good, right? There were some stretches there. They didn't, but I remember being in a very difficult battle with several of those Indiana teams. And, they went through some upswings, some downswings, but they're in a high level right now. And that's got to be, it's going to be a really exciting game for us. It's actually game 4. So we got a little time to between now and then, but it's going to be one that's going to be huge.
Yeah. And finally, I know that you're pressed for time, and thank you for taking it. Any final thoughts here that you want to share out with the fans prior to the season starting? Will be obviously, this will also be on our IlliniGuys Sports Spectacular, our weekly hourly radio show that's on 24 stations across the state of Illinois.
Just super excited. One of the things I love to say, and again, I gathered this from one of my old bosses, Coach Alvarez always used to say, and one of his favorite phrases after a game was, "Coach, job well done," right? And I don't get that a lot, but I do love after a game, drive through the tailgate section or, be around some fans and alumni. If it's an earlier game, my wife and I will try to stop by, swing by, and just to see so many happy people, right? It's one thing to tailgate and go to a game and have fun, but you want to create a memory, and that memory goes a lot further than just the 4 quarters of the game, right? It's that memory of, maybe it's a family that got together for the weekend and then they tailgated together, or maybe they hadn't seen somebody in the last 5 years, 10 years, or maybe it was been 2 weeks since the last tailgate, right? Whatever it is, you create a memory. And I think that's what college sports, college football is all about, right? Like, give you a reason to come back, set last year 7 home games to give them 6 winnable experiences. Obviously the Minnesota game was a gut wrencher, right? But like, I think that's the thing we're trying to, put ourselves, obviously Illinois football is very important, near and dear to my heart, but Josh and I made a pact to try and build this thing to have sustainable success, to give people a life experience, right? And we're trying to do that every day. Also trying to represent our Illinois fans in the best way possible, right? Like, I know everybody doesn't like to wear that shirt and go around chanting ILL after a loss, or if we're not doing things the right way, right? Like, our kids, 5 straight semesters of over a 3.0 GPA. Guys are graduating and doing the things they're supposed to do, right? And putting themselves in a great place. So really excited about everything. Just kind of take it all in day by day and enjoy the ride.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Coach. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Mike. ILL.
I.
This is the Run My Own Business dream. This is the college is paid for dream. This is the retire early dream. This is Busey, where your dreams and possibilities become moments through trusted guidance and expertise, through lifelong relationships. Because we're here to help you achieve the life you've always envisioned.
Welcome to Eye on the Illini. This is Mike Cagley, and we are doing something a little different today. We're going to be talking with Rob Louthain, and he is a name that you may or may not know. Does a lot of work with Illini properties and with Learfield, etc. And that's been an area that Illinois has had a really big network of radio partners across the state of Illinois. In fact, that was a lot of the reason that the IlliniGuys Sports Spectacular started, because we thought that's such a great and a strong network. We thought Illini fans might want something that they could listen to that didn't have to be tied to game day. And that was the birth of the IlliniGuys Sports Spectacular. So, Rob, we know there was some news this summer that Illinois had entered an innovative uh, partnership collaboration with Learfield. And I thought for Illini fans who kind of enjoy some of the behind the scenes stuff, and really for Illini fans who kind of like how Josh Whitman keeps on the cutting edge of the what's going on in the sport today, I thought maybe you could come on, explain what your role is, and then we could talk a little bit about this new deal.
Sure. No, happy to. Thanks for having me, Mike. Excited to be here. Yeah, we had just wrapped up, I think, 12 years with the athletic department as their kind of exclusive multimedia rights partner. MMR, just to kind of maybe roll things back and start from the beginning. But Learfield has 155 different properties, universities that we work with across the country. A lot of them in the Big Ten, SEC, a lot of the Power Four schools. And we've been doing it for 50 plus years now. But like you said, to your credit, to Josh's credit, Roger Denny, Tom Moreland, Marty Kaufman, really kind of challenged us to come back as our term was kind of winding down. How can we kind of relook at this new approach? Again, we kind of started as a radio network. College athletics has certainly changed immensely, we all know, in the last 5 years. But so is brand partnerships and sponsorships and social media and content. And, the days of selling program ads and radio spots are just not completely in the rearview mirror, but it's changed a lot. So, how can we reinvent this in terms of the sponsorship department for Fighting Illini athletics? So, again, they challenged us on that, and we came back with several ideas. And, we were able to extend for another 6 years with them. And, there'll be a lot of changes as part of this, which I'm happy to talk about. But we're excited to continue the relationship. We're kind of the forerunner in the multimedia rights area. And then, we fold in, we Sidearm is the official athletic sites for most universities across this country. We have collegiate licensing company, CLC is also a Learfield company, Pacquiolin, all the ticketing. So you fold that in with all the data and analytics that we have across our Learfield platform. And it's an incredible tool for us to tap into for brand partnerships and again, just the all important driving revenue for an athletic department. So yeah, we're excited.
Yeah, that's a cool one. And I don't think people understand the technology that Learfield has. Not to get too into the weeds, but you've got the ability to deliver a live broadcast via satellite that folks don't have to do anything. In a radio station, it just comes in at the time and they get that fantastic broadcast, and it's just amazing. Some stuff that at IlliniGuys, I wish we had a little sliver of that technology, because it would be so fun to have the capabilities of Learfield. So now, what is your new role, and how will that be a little different as
Sure.
we then go in and talk a little more about this?
Yeah, my role will really kind of stay the same. My title may change a little bit, just to bring it in more in-house and just, again, more outward facing, that we are part of the athletic department. We are fully integrated into their staff and representing them and all of their sponsorship sales efforts. So I'm not quite sure what my title is going to be just yet, but I think the key part to this would be my team staff is growing quite a bit here. We've added 2 new roles just with this extension that really would, again, hopefully propel and bring in some more revenue for us. We've hired an NIL business manager. So true NIL, commercial NIL, there's 100 different ways to say it, but kind of above the cap deals where you're going to see student athletes in commercials doing social media appearances, not the collective stuff, but really almost kind of back to what true NIL was designed for. Okay. So that's where we come in. So we're out talking to brands, trying to get deals with, if they would like to use student athletes in their creative, then that's how we do it. If you want to put a student athlete in your commercial and you want, basically it's IP is really the driving force there. If you want to put Luke Altmaier in a jersey at Memorial Stadium with a block eye, then you have to work through us. So, we're out there. This position is solely created to go get those deals done, big or small. It can be a local Champaign restaurant that just wants to get some content out and feed, linebackers or tennis players, you name it.
Yep.
We could do that, or we're talking to some bigger brands on some really bigger dollars to do content and full day shoots and media, social media posts, and you name it. So, we were actually, myself and this new NIL business manager, his name's Michael Ryan, local kid from Champaign, really lucky to get him. He's off and running already. He just started this month. But we were on a call with a player agent on Friday, just talking about how we can help that person get some deals done. I just never thought in my years going into college athletics, I'd be sitting on calls with agents now. And he said the same thing, when he was getting high school athletes, he had no idea he'd be having these conversations. So again, that's just the changing landscape that we're in right now. And it's exciting. It's fun. It's cool that brands can now utilize student athletes in their advertising.
So when they go through you, if I'm understanding this correct, then not only do they get the benefits of the athlete and the athlete's image, but when they go through you, now all of a sudden you get the full weight of potentially using the University of Illinois, where you can be, like you said, on the stadium at Memorial Stadium and use those images. Wow, that's powerful, because if you wanted to, but the athlete, him or herself, is a big selling point.
Yeah.
But now if you've got, Memorial Stadium there, or, the State Farm Center, or, many other places, or the actual University of Illinois jersey instead of a blue knockoff, you can get that full strength of the marketing.
Correct. Yeah. And we'll package it with in-stadium assets, certainly radio, the fact that we have our official Fighting Illini social media channels to push out that content versus the brand just pushing it out, gives it an added boost to it. And it kind of legitimizes it. It, makes it look real, like you said, versus someone just in a knockoff blue and orange t-shirt. That's where we could really leverage intellectual property with those student athletes for sure.
Wow. Yeah. That's a big difference. So any details of how this is going to work, is there something that Illinois fans might see different, when they look at this partnership with Learfield, or is this a lot of things behind the scenes?
It might, hopefully you'll see more deals and more sponsors. We're adding some more staff behind it as well. Hopefully you're going to see more deals with student athletes as part of the marketing that we just covered. But it's more outwardly. I think we're trying to almost get away from using Learfield and Fighting Illini Sports Properties and having to explain what MMR is. When you're out trying to get sponsorship deals done, I'm sure you're doing the same thing. You have to, the 3 layers of explanation just doesn't, I'd rather avoid that. I'd rather just call someone and say, hey, I'm over partnerships for Fighting Illini Athletics. Would love to have you, have a conversation or bring you on as a partner and support the department and athletics. And, again, this changing world, just we're all looking for some revenue. It's more outward facing, I think, was what we wanted this to look like. But then adding this NIL specific role. And then the second role I should have spoken about earlier is also just a content creation role. So now this person will be out shooting games, practices, every deal we do where we need a cameraman and we need some video, we need some editing for the brand. We've got someone in-house that can just do that for us now. So those are the 2 key roles, again, that you're, hopefully you're seeing more content, you're seeing more deals with student athletes. That's where fans, I think, will notice it more than anything.
Yeah. And that's pretty impressive, because I will say, if you look at the content of what the University of Illinois athletic department teams are putting out, it's really good. So to augment that will be fantastic for the university.
I agree. We're lucky. We've got 2 staffs, the basketball, football staffs in particular, are just really good. So yeah, being able to tap into them and utilize their talents will be huge for our brand partners.
Yeah, just even over the weekend, you saw the 20-mile-per-hour club on the Illini football thing. I was actually a member of the 5-mile-per-hour club. Never got anywhere near 20. So you look at that, just was fantastic, and was even reflecting, myself as I looked at that, that people didn't even probably even think about like all the effort that Tank Wright did in the off season to get those guys to the position where there were what
Correct.
47 of them or whatever who made the 20-mile-per-hour club.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty impressive. And then in terms of like, if the people are still like businesses, if there's somebody right here who's listening on the podcast, they're still going to be reaching out to you and your staff to get those advertising or those, the multimedia integration working.
Correct. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we've got 3 salespeople full time now, an activation person just to make sure everything's running smoothly, and we're getting all the LED and radio spots and commercial spots running, and then these 2 new positions. So yeah, we're now fully staffed at 7, which is as large as we've been. Our radio networks second, I think, only in the Learfield ecosystem to Alabama, really. So I mean, that just tells you the power of the state of Illinois and radio, and just fans wanting to hear the Fighting Illini. The fact that we've got 59 affiliates in the state is huge. Yeah, we're excited. And then just certainly the talent level and the expectations going into this year is going to be fun too.
Yeah. And then since you'll be integrated fully now, so you'll be around the teams, you'll be around in the athletic department, which I would assume will have some big advantages when you're out there trying to meet with the public as well.
Yeah, I think it will. We'll be, working a little closer probably with the iFund crew, and, we still work with Icon, and just, making sure all of us are communicating, because we're all out there trying to raise revenue for the athletic department. So a little more of a cohesive approach too is also the plan, I think, just working closer with them, information sharing and lead lists and that type of fun stuff, making sure we're not stepping on each other's toes, but also working together will be a big part of this for sure.
Yeah. Now, Rob, just in case, like I said, just in case somebody is on there, how would they get a hold of you if they wanted to reach you for any opportunities?
We're on fightingillini.com. Just look up sponsorship there, and our whole team is on there with our email addresses and phone numbers. That would probably be the best bet. Again, just trying to drive everybody to the official athletic site for the Fighting Illini. Yeah, that would be the best way. And yeah, like I said, we're having conversations all across the state, and certainly in the Champaign-Urbana area for sure.
Perfect. Well, that's good to know, because I will say that it's building these type of things across the country, and that's probably the other part that I think people really don't understand about the University of Illinois is you've got a nationwide alumni base, with Illinois being, I believe, one of the top 10 alumni bases in the country.
Yeah, and just even from a sales aspect for us, just adding these teams in the West Coast now you've got we've got a slide in our presentation deck that just talks about having 16 of the top 20 TV markets in the country right now. So if you want to buy some courtside LED, you're going to be on nationwide. So that's part of our pitch as well. The fact that we're now reaching fans on all 3 coasts and 2 coasts, and then here in the Midwest, and with all of our alumni in the Chicago area. Yeah, it's certainly part of our sales pitch for sure.
Yeah, it was hard to believe at one point Illinois was, kind of on the western edge of the Big Ten. Now, not even close.
Yeah. Oh, it's nuts, but it's fun. Yeah, we're excited.
Is there anything coming up that fans should be looking for? Anything that they might see a little bit different? I know obviously Brian Barnhart's going to be the voice, of Illini football. Anything to watch for there?
No, we've got the whole crew coming back again on the radio side. I mean, we're so lucky. We've got Brian and Dion and everybody across all of our broadcasts, from volleyball to softball, baseball. It's a great group. we're great. Happy to have everybody back there. I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, the athletic department will have a press release coming out here in the next week or so, just on kind of the fun new changes to game day for this fall at Memorial Stadium. So look for that information here pretty quickly. Just again on some new things, new partnerships, some new offerings on game day. Huge football season coming up. We're excited.
Oh yeah, this is. I got to be honest with you. I'm a little bit nervous, but this is what it was like in the '80s. I really, growing up in Mahomet, and it was just incredible each year. You got used to the Illini were going to be in the top 25 in football and basketball,
Yeah.
and I remember telling my dad like, "Oh, this is great," and he's like, "It doesn't stay this way, son," and I would be like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" So I'm hoping with Bret Bielema and Brad Underwood, obviously Shauna Green, and then working under Josh Whitman, that this will just kind of be a regular thing like I wanted it to be in the 80s.
Yeah, no, can't argue with the talent on the coaching staffs. That's for sure. We're in a good spot. Yeah.
Perfect. Is there anything else then that fans need to know about, or anything that they might see that you wanted to highlight before I let you go?
No, like I said, a lot of it's just more behind the scenes stuff and the technology and just getting these NIL deals done. We've got, we've got an app called Compass now where we can do deals and send them right to their phones, and they can accept them, and we can pay them through this, and it,
Wow.
coincides with NIL Go. So it's all, approved, and, just that's the type of stuff that we're really diving into now that fans probably don't know about or won't see. But, that's kind of how the sausage is made, or, the engine behind the machine a little bit, is just all of that stuff going on. Hopefully just to, again, drive revenue, keep the players we have here, and bring in new ones every year.
Yeah, that'll be exciting to see. Well, thank you so much for taking a few minutes of your time. I know that it's busy. You got a lot of things going on as the season is rapidly approaching, and we really appreciate you jumping on Eye on the Illini.
Love it. No, great stuff. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.